Welcome in. It is Big Ten Today. Great to have you with us on this Tuesday. Dave Revson and Jake Butt will be joined by Yogi Roth momentarily, but back from Eugene. Got a chance to see the Ducks put on a show.
It's great to see you. I don't want to spend too much time. I know we got 18 games, but I want to give a shout out to Yogi Roth here. I'm going to start calling you Yogstradamus because you told me how good Dante Moore was going to look. Man, you did not lie. My eyes were pleased to see how talented the new Duck quarterback is.
All right, Yogi, chance to pat yourself on the back. What say you?
He's got the most arm talent in this league. Jake, I told you were going to be doing replay after replay. I watched that game back. There were a lot of impressive replays. I know we'll get to that, but the Kenyon Sadiq, I wish it was like a booth cam when he just flexed on somebody and scored a touchdown. And I was hoping we get like a flashback to you doing a version of that in your playing days. At any level, I wanted the comp. I didn't get it. That was a little bummer, but thankfully there was a bison coming from the sky. We had a great game here in LA, so a lot of good things on a Saturday.
The only thing me and Kenyon Sadiq have in common is we both played tight end. I do not have an 8-pack. I do not look like that guy. I've never hurdled anyone in my life, so I'm glad I can at least associate with him just because we played the same position, but I'm not a freak like Kenyon Sadiq.
He has a manufactured in a lab feel to him. I mean,
yes.
It's just an amazing, amazing athlete. So much fun to watch. And I know no one geeks out about tight end play quite like you, so I was happy for you that you got to see it in person. Let's get to our big story, which is brought to you by Rally House. Some massive margins for the Big Ten in week one. USC won by 60. Again, Yogi would say our largest margin in 17 years. Illinois got a 49-point win, their largest margin in 9 years. Oregon, Penn State, Maryland also posting blowout victories. Some of these would be expected, obviously, given the opponent, but it would not be sports were we not here to overreact. So that's what we're going to do. I want to start with Oregon. You got a chance to see him up close and personal. It is amazing how much their roster turned over and how much depth they have on their roster. Like, those two are hard to do in this day and age, but man, they have so many different guys who can play.
So that'll be my overreaction here is I think this team has a chance to be better than last year's team, and that's saying undefeated, win the Big Ten champion. But
Number one for 6 weeks.
Right. Well, I'll just tell you what Dan Lanning told us in the pregame meetings. He said, listen, it remains to be seen what our high-level talent looks like. I mean, these are a bunch of guys getting their opportunity to start for Oregon, but he told our crew that he feels they have more winning football players on this roster than they did last year, which means he feels great about their depth. My major overreaction, I buried the lead a little bit earlier here, is that I think Dante Moore will be a top 10 pick. There's a formula here for Oregon that they followed, which is to get a transfer quarterback, Bo Nix, to go get a transfer quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. Both those guys were phenomenal. But Dante Moore is an even different level of talent. And I think it's his journey that is what is going to allow him to realize his full potential. The fact that he chose to sit and learned under Dylan Gabriel last year to understand this system with Coach Stein. Will Stein told us that when it's all said and done, Dante has a chance to be the best he's ever seen. And a great start. I understand they're going to play better opponents throughout the season, but man, did Dante Moore look comfortable in the game this past weekend.
Yeah, pretty amazing, Yogs.
Yeah, it just makes me feel good to hear you say that. Sometimes, you have all these conversations all off season. You're like, I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. Like, he might be that this year. Other than Caleb Downs, he might be the highest drafted player because he's draft eligible. I don't know if he's going to come out. I know we're getting way over our skis here, but I think it's fair to assess it. To your point of his experience at UCLA, to sit, learn, and then thrive. Like, you just don't see it that often. We don't see the maturity around that often to go there and want to do that. I mean, I can remember talking to him 100 feet away from where I'm sitting right now when he was leaving UCLA and talking about what he wanted in life. And a big part of it was to gain mastery around the position. Now, doesn't have it yet. No one ever does. Even Tom Brady would say he didn't even have it at the end after multiple Super Bowls. But that's what I think allows Dante Moore to continue to thrive. I loved what he said after the game of, going on long drives. Like, I got to make sure that my breath is right. I think he said, like, I had to catch my breath or a version of that. And that's true. Like, these games, there's performance anxiety, there's a crowd, Big Ten Network, it's on air, the whole 9 yards, and they'll have a much different version of that this week because there'll be more expectations externally with Oklahoma State coming into town. But I don't think the story will change very much. And then I'll go to this. And this is kind of like an obsession of mine in the season, especially in week one, is watching how guys celebrate. I just think it's really important to talk about that. And here we go with DeCorian Moore, the true freshman. Find me a better block that every receiver coach in the country is going to enjoy more than the one he had on Gary Bryant's touchdown. And then you watch Gary Bryant's celebration. It wasn't to the fans. It was right to the man blocking in front of him as a true freshman just pancaked that poor man in the secondary. Those are the things when you watch this team celebrate. And I've been around Oregon a lot, as you know, guys. There was a run where they just kept winning and winning and winning. And to that point, some of the young players were just expecting it to happen. This program has won for a long time now, whether it was Mario Cristobal and then what Dan Lanning took it to a new level, what they did last year. You didn't see anybody just expecting it to happen. I thought it was as complete of a game as they've had. They referenced that week 1 game a year ago. We called that one on the Big Ten Network as well. Jake, this one was over within the first drive, man. I mean, it was just a rout, and they proved to earn everything that you said about them, because I do believe they are a better team than they were a year ago. Can they stay healthy, put it together? We'll find out.
So many different options. Every healthy scholarship wide receiver caught a pass. Every healthy scholarship running back carried the ball. Just a complete dominant effort from Oregon. The same could be said of USC, the team you saw, Yogi. Most points since 1930, which is saying something. I mean, I think it's fair to say, I mentioned this yesterday, USC has had some fairly good teams since 1930 in the interim. Again, you don't want to overreact. I understand the opponent playing in its first ever game as an FBS team, but man, that was something else.
I feel like I've either called or been on the sideline for the last 20 years of SC's openers. And since that Pete Carroll era, very rarely did you see absolute utter dominance, regardless of the opponent. It was just kind of a feeling out, right? It was false starts, it was penalties, it was missed tackles. None of that happened. None of that happened. It was so complete. And last year we talked about them a lot of, it was a foundational year for Lincoln Riley, kind of like second bite at the apple. Year 1, Caleb, lightning in a bottle. Year 2, they tried to win in the portal, struggled there. Year 3, reset the defense last year and also reset recruiting. And then you watched it continue to grow. We know all the close games they lost a year ago. This year, you've got 3 players that are in their 3rd year that were recruited on the offensive line that are now starting. You've got a quarterback who, to me, shoulders dropped. Jaden Mayava looked as confident as he's been, and I've said this and will continue to say it. At SC, when you sign as a quarterback, you're a household name. When you start, you're a Heisman candidate. Point blank. That's just the reality. Look at the Peristyle Inn and all those retired jerseys that are in that beautiful stadium. I believe that this team finally has the maturity and, most importantly, connectivity to make a real run. Like, if we looked at echelons in this league regarding competitive depth, SC after week 1 jumped to the top of that second echelon behind Penn State, Ohio State, and the aforementioned Oregon Ducks. One other thing that I noticed that you may have missed in the broadcast because the game was a blowout, when they entered the stadium, and it's LA, and LA is a different beast, fellas. Oftentimes, at least in this new era of NIL, recruiting, etc., guys have like sick game fit. Right? They're looking like a version of Guy Haberman and Rhett Lewis. Like, sweet suit, they roll in their hair's great, whatever the look may be. But the team decided earlier last week to say, no, instead of doing that, which is clearly individualized. And again, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have to judge it. I'll double tap all the IGs of the sweet fits. But there is something in LA of like, there's so much that pulls at you. And they rolled in with just sweats on. Everybody looked the same. And I'm watching in pregame, and I hit the button. I talked to our producer, Glenn, and I said, dude, we're showing this in the game. And I went down on the field and confirmed it with members of the staff of like, yeah, like we just want to celebrate together, want to be together. Jacoby Lane told me that earlier this week of there's really no big time individuals because there are no like mega stars on this team. And I felt that, again, to the point of celebrating together. There was so much to celebrate, of course, but that stood out to me in a huge way. I think SC is turning the corner. Keep an eye on them as this thing progresses.
Yeah, I think their ability to turn the corner, and you said it's a standard. If you're going to play for Lincoln Riley, if you're going to play quarterback at USC, they're going to have a dominant passing attack, and it was certainly an efficient day. But, Dave, when you talk about the ability to flip these one-score games and to make a push for the playoffs, what stood out to me was the run game. 30 carries for over 200 yards. And then what you also see is a changing of identity. I'm seeing wide receivers 30, 40 yards down the field in a blowout, straining for their buddies so some of those runs could be finished with a touchdown. And then the flip side, the key is really the defense. And D'Anton Lynn was hired a few years back to revitalize and completely turn over this defense. And it's been a while to get the bodies. And he said this offseason that he finally feels he has the bodies and personnel to run the full scheme that he wants to run. We'll talk about a disruptive day with 5 sacks, 13 TFLs, and 3 takeaways. That's the identity for USC. If you can run the ball and play great defense, enforce turnovers and negative plays, that's how they're going to flip some of these one-score games and reach their ultimate goal.
Really a complete performance. Then when your quarterback goes 14 of 14 on passes of less than 20 yards, and you're running the ball, and you're playing good defense, it's a really nice combination to have. What about Michigan? I feel like the final score was maybe a little bit closer than the game felt, to me anyway. But there was so much excitement about Bryce Underwood, and he absolutely delivered. The run game looked very good. What did you make of the Wolverines? Overreact for me.
Well, I would say New Mexico came to play, and I give them a ton of credit. They were there to win the game, and because of that, we got to see Bryce Underwood respond and react. There was that stagnant period in the second quarter. And let me just answer you. My overreaction, I don't have an overreaction. That we spent all of August overreacting about this guy. I believe we are confirmed in our belief that he can and already is special. And the one thing that jumped out to me, he comes out early in the game and immediately starts to make some key throws. It looks great. But then there was just kind of this lull in the second quarter where Michigan was struggling to move the ball. It's a closer game than you'd expect. All of a sudden, it's 3rd and 14 in the 2-minute drive. And you're wondering, is Michigan going to go 3 and out and have to punt the ball again? He steps up in the pocket and rips an inside dagger out to his guy Simpson. Beautiful ball into a tight window. It leads to an explosive, and they ultimately are able to score points. I thought the relationship of Chip Lindsey with Bryce Underwood was key. Immediately, you could see an identity for Michigan's offense. What I love about Chip Lindsey, didn't get tired running the ball, especially in the first quarter. He just stuck with what works. He wasn't trying to prove everything. The combination of that offensive line's ability to run the ball with Bryce Underwood's talent and getting into play action makes this Michigan team extremely scary.
I love the use of the dagger route, first of all. Major props on that, Jake. Love that. I'll say this for an overreaction. Number one, Jason Eck is a heck of a coach. He was the head coach at Idaho last year that almost beat Oregon in the opener. So you knew his team was going to bring it in the big house. And I thought they did. They had a heck of a game plan. It's a fun game to watch back. And the trick play underneath the center's leg was just a really fun play to watch. What I was really impressed with, you referenced Chip Lindsey, is the variance at quarterback in terms of under center some snaps, turning his back to the defense on a play action, half roll, max protection, gun, RPO. I mean, all of it was really impressive. Like the menu, you got to imagine as this thing evolves, has the basis of, oh, look out. This isn't just going to be RPO, read the weak side defender, one defender read and get the ball out. Like, as I watched that back, I said, oh, okay, what was laid in the spring, what was laid again in the fall, like you can imagine layers to that scheme this weekend when they go down to Norman, Oklahoma in the game of the week in all of college football. What I'm so curious to watch is when Michigan gets behind the sticks this weekend on the road in a game. That's the one thing we didn't get to see because they were really dictating terms for the majority of that ball game. But overall, Bryce Underwood, ball placement, moving left, right in the pocket, discernment, touch, all of the things showed up. And I would say probably the coolest thing to watch was when you go back and you watch the spring game, Jake, that you called to now, you could just see how much he's worked at his feet and being in sync. Like, I'm a big fan of sequencing in football, and the phrase ground force equals rotational force, meaning it all starts with your cleats in the ground. He was solid. Like, his feet were impressive. Young quarterbacks, especially those that have played in the gun a lot in their careers, often aren't on balance when they play. It's why you see a ball sail. It's why you see not necessarily accuracy across the middle. What I loved about him was not only the accuracy, but the confidence to continue to make throws. And even how the game started. My favorite throw is the 5th snap of the game. It's a zone read. He throws across his body. That's a confident throw. Your first time playing in a place, he said after the game, he's been going to games since he was 8 or 9 years old. I mean, come on, man. That was worthy of an overreaction. I can't wait to watch him grow. Everything will be for the first time. It won't be perfect. But, man, is he going to be an absolute star for this program in years to come.
Already is. More passing yards than in any game last year for Michigan. Again, level of difficulty ramps up considerably. Their first road game in non-conference since 2018 as they head down, as Yogi referenced, to Norman this week. And we'll spend a ton of time talking about that one in the days to come. Yogi, you're going to be in State College, get a chance to watch Penn State coming up here this weekend. Give us a sense for what you saw against Nevada. What would be your week one overreaction on the Nittany Lions?
Well, I think me and my 106,000 and change closest friends are going to get used to seeing Zane Durant and Dennis Sutton lined up next to each other. They were on the they played 26 snaps together, and 22 of those 26 they lined up next to each other. That's my overreaction. Is like, and I don't even, it might just be reality, fellas. How are you going to stop it? I mean, how are you going to stop it? I get the philosophy sometimes. It's, hey, leave somebody unblocked, make a read off of him, because why are we going to try to block 33? That was the game plan a lot early on in the game on Saturday. But when he denied Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant are next to each other, man, you don't have much of a chance, if any at all. And then the other side was Drew Aller. His command at the line of scrimmage just continues to be so impressive. I mean, just nerd out on the little things that he's doing. Quick reset up for protection, quick little something to his offensive line to make sure that they're set up and he's not going to get hit. I love that. And then the receivers. We knew that they were better just being there, Jake, in early August in training camp, Dave. We were all there together. And then watching it play out, Kyron Hudson, just, I think, emerging and will continue to emerge as a go-to guy. They just have so much depth. I think they are worth the hype. They have followed the script of the last two national champions. Can't wait to get on campus and learn more about how mission-minded this team is heading into week 2.
I got to imagine that was just so fun for Penn State fans to watch and see what Drew Aller's capable of with dynamic receivers down the field. Kyron Hudson definitely answered the call. Trevor Pena looked great. They didn't even throw the ball to the tight end. And I talk about the tight end. They got some good tight ends, so that's a whole nother element to unlock. Yeah. But I want to talk about the defensive line because I've been wondering, could this defensive line be better without Abdul Carter? Like that's a crazy thing to think. But if Dennis Sutton can take the stride, which it certainly looks he's capable of, and Zane Durant obviously is special, but it's going to require others. And there's a true freshman named Chaz Coleman, their defensive end, that did some really freaky things on film that won't show up in the stat sheet. Guys that are reading the running back coming to chip him, so he does a spin move on the fly inside and flushes the quarterback. It's that depth and youth that will ultimately allow us to answer the question if the D-line can be better, but certainly a lot of promising things for Penn State on both sides of the football.
And again, remember, they open conference play against Oregon. You got Florida International this week, again, on the Big Ten Network. Villanova the following week, a bye week, and then the Ducks come to town for that whiteout. So get everything primed. Work out whatever challenges you've got. They weren't great in the red zone. Mm-hmm. They didn't run the ball.
Yes.
They didn't run the ball as well as you want to. But, man, a lot of positives. And Jim Knowles running that defense looked pretty good.
Just a great environment. It's loud, man. This place is loud. I love it. I absolutely love it. The fans, you don't get that kind of noise in an NFL game. So I'm super appreciative of that. When play home every game, if we can figure that out, that'd be great. I'd be really excited about that.
I don't think that's going to fly with the rest of the conference, but it was an amazing atmosphere at the Shoe, particularly for a noon game. Sometimes it's hard to get everyone in and ready to go for those early games. I love that Patricia still has the pencil look going, too. Even in the post game up there underneath the hat. But really an impressive performance by Ohio State in what was clearly the game of the weekend in college football. This is your first chance on our airwaves to talk about what you saw from the Buckeyes. I know you've got them this week, so you're deep in your preparation for the game against Grambling. How awesome is it, by the way, that we have both Ohio State and Penn State on our air? But I'll give you the first word here on what you saw from the Buckeyes.
What an absolute treat to watch Matt Patricia and this Ohio State defense. I mean, that was always going to be the fun battle. So much was made about Arch Manning, preseason Heisman favorite, maybe the top pick in next year's NFL draft. Obviously, the combination with Steve Sarkisian calling plays. Man, what is this new look Buckeye defense going to do with Matt Patricia? And they dominated the mental battle. And there's always a question and a curiosity, which is Matt Patricia is an NFL guy and extremely intelligent. How does that NFL playbook and NFL mentality translate down to the college level? And I give so much credit to the Ohio State defense, their football IQ, their intelligence, and then their communication in the back end in particular to pass off some of these concepts. That's what allowed Patricia to call such exotic plays and formations. They're running 5 down fronts with the defensive line. Occasionally, Caleb Downs is lining up at the defensive end position. it looked like Arch had no clue what he was seeing. There was a ton of exotic looks in the first half, and it seemed like they simplified things in the second half, but by then the mental damage was done. Arch had no clue what he was seeing. A few guys stood out to me. Arvell Reese at linebacker, I'm calling it now, he will be an All-American this year. What he did physically to dominate Texas's offensive line in key running situations, outstanding. But then he had the speed to run down Arch and their running backs and tight ends, really looked like a safety at linebacker. And then Jermaine Matthews Jr. on the outside replacing Denzel Burke. Rinse and repeat for Ohio State, next man up. Jermaine Matthews looks like the next great Ohio State defensive back. So, man, that is the headline of the day. The Buckeye defense dominated, Yogi.
Ooh, did they ever? Did they ever? I'll say a couple things. We were there in the spring, and you just dive into Matt Patricia's background. Just so we're clear, offensive coordinator in the NFL, defensive coordinator in the NFL, GM in the NFL, head coach in the NFL. Like, there isn't a job he hasn't done, and then decides to come on back to college. And what made it so intriguing, to your point, is exactly what we saw play out on Saturday. Is the best 11 to be on the field, but you don't know where they're going to be. You don't know where they're going to be. And we live in college football, and today's show is like all about overreactions and maybe hype. That's the entirety of an offseason. As a quarterback, to your point on Arch Manning, being able to identify who are the 4 defensive linemen that are down, who's the backer that our offensive line is going to go 4 down to that linebacker, to identify that when, to your point, if Caleb Downs is playing defensive end, dropping into coverage, like, it is just a hard thing to do, and they clearly struggled in that. I loved what they said after the game of Ryan Day saying there was just been complete buy-in. And I think from being there in the spring or watching them in camp and then here after week 1, to me, it just feels like the competitive depth is so impressive that every day in practice, you're coming out to be the best version of yourself or you're not going to play. Because they have that everywhere. Then their best players elevate them. We saw Jeremiah Smith have uncharacteristic drops. Nobody flinched, including him. So that stood out to me. From a play standpoint, are you kidding me with Arvell Reese? And they talked about it in the broadcast. He's lined up, I think it was over the tight end or the tackle, and all of a sudden the tight end releases. He looks to him, gives it 1,000, 2,000, then boom, all of a sudden he's in the backfield. Those are things you don't see a lot in college football. And that, to me, is where, like, some of the NFL tendencies, some of the NFL stuff bled into the game plan in a huge way. They are going to give everybody fits. I mean, you're going to have to play relatively perfect against this team right now, or at least this defense with what we've seen with the playmakers, the size. Hopefully we'll see even more of their depth. Hopefully Kenyatta Jackson come back and be all right. But you're right. Defensively, these guys are national championship conversation worthy. And they're different than last year. So it's so hard to say, like, I don't know if they're better than last year. They're built differently, but God, is it impressive again.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's got lost here, Yogi, is, to me, I thought Julian Sayin played a phenomenal game. And Ryan Day kind of revealed in the postgame that they intentionally kept the game plan simple. They wanted to make sure that he was able to be confident about what he was seeing out there. And the stats won't tell the full story. He made some big-time throws. You saw that one in the back of his end zone rolling away and hitting Carnell Tate down the sideline. But the stats won't tell the full story. I mean, he had a 4th down rope that he threw to his tight end, Max Clare, that was dropped. Jeremiah Smith, 2 drops. That's not going to happen again. There was a 3rd down situation, slot fade to Brandon Inniss. Dropped it in a bucket, and Brandon Inniss dropped it. All those would have continued the drive and allowed for further stats and further playmaking ability. So, that was the other question for Ohio State is what are they going to look like with the new quarterback, new offensive coordinator? I thought Julian Sayin completely answered every single question in this game, and I'm excited to see what he does going forward now that he's earned Ryan Day's trust, and it sounds like they're going to open up the playbook further.
Yeah, well, that was another one of the battles we talked about last week of defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski, who's one of the most revered defensive coordinators in all of college football, and Brian Hartline in his first game now with the keys to the car, per se, on offense. And I really like the game plan, the mixing it up, keeping them off balance. To your point, nothing had to be processed at a crazy level in terms of multiple checks in the line of scrimmage. It was line up, what do we do? Get the ball out. Line up, run the ball, get us to manageable 3rd and potential 4th downs if we want to go to 4-down territory. So overall, that to me is the recipe. I mean, so often when you have upsets in college football, it's because of unforced errors by the better team. For Ohio State, that is going to be the challenge for the majority of their games. Yeah, you're going to have to make plays. They'll do that, but can they play fast? Can they play free? I learned that a long time ago. Your best players, you want to get them the rock, and you want them to not have to think too much. When I watched this offense on Saturday and then watching it back, everybody knew every little element, regardless of what the defense did, because the defense threw wrinkles that Ohio State had not seen before. Pete Kukowski did not have the same game plan they had when they played in the bowl game we were at in Dallas. So overall, A+, A+. And then I love how, to me, Ryan Day, just like he did last week, it's just one game. It's just one game. And I think the veteran element of what this team went through a year ago, I think is going to allow them to be healthy between the ears as the season progresses. Regarding expectations, hype, being the number one team in the country, all those things will come with their win from the one against Texas.
Yeah, and Yogi, I know you agree with this or look at the game in this sense too. You know, it looked like with all these new faces, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, guys getting their chance to be the starter, to be the guy for Ohio State, they played with a certain hunger that they were so excited that it's finally their chance to lead this Buckeye defense. And, you know, there's been a lot of conversations about which team should be number one in the AP rankings coming up. Ohio State is the best team in college football. I will not hear any other debate.
Well, when you're the defending champs and then you beat number one in the first game of the year, that feels like a somewhat convincing argument for the Buckeyes. Again, regardless of the rank, they looked the part, no doubt, on Saturday. There is some sad news to report from the hoops world. Former Iowa and USC basketball coach George Raveling has passed away after a battle with cancer. The Naismith Hall of Famer took the Hawks to 2 NCAA tourneys in his 3 years there before leaving for L.A., where he made 4 postseason tourneys in 8 years. He's been the director of international basketball for Nike since leaving the Trojan job. Raveling led an amazing life. Among other things, he owned the original typewritten "I Have a Dream" speech. He worked security for Martin Luther King Jr. that day. George Raveling was 88 years old. Back on Big Ten today, we're talking QBs, and what a debut in Maryland for the highly recruited local product Malik Washington. 3 TD passes, the most for a power conference true freshman in his debut since Trevor Lawrence at Clemson in 2018. He turned out pretty well. Among the many impressive stats for Washington, 43 pass attempts without an interception. And that leads us to our quarterback spotlight, and Yogi will give you the first word on Washington. Lead us off here.
Well, I think when I look at him, number one, let's just start with he's an amazing human being. I got to meet him at the Elite 11 2 summers ago. Just an awesome, infectious personality, it factor in that regard. Then you go watch him play, and there was just a feeling, right? You guys were there in camp when he was banged up, but there was always this feeling of inertia that he was going to be the guy. Prove that. I love how he started because he was 1 of 8. And to me, as a quarterback, you got to have pace, which is plays after critical errors. He didn't have any critical errors in his first few snaps, but it wasn't perfect, and he did not flinch. This is a guy who grew up nearby, wanted to play there, went there clearly after they had a challenging season a year ago. He and Mike Loxley tied at the hip. Pep Hamilton, how about the game plan? Then you watch him play. He's under center. We talked about that a little earlier with Bryce Underwood. He's under center, deep play action. He's from the gun. It's RPO. It's down the field. I mean, just didn't flinch. He threw plays with not only horsepower, but conviction. He threw passes in that regard. So he, flying colors in my estimation. And I love that it didn't start well because that's exactly what Big Ten play is going to be for Maryland moving forward. And I think that will resonate in that locker room. I'm sure they've talked about it, whether it was 3 of 11, 1 of 8, however you want to spin how he started the game. He didn't flinch, completing 24 of his final 2 for 239 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, come on, man. It doesn't get much better than that in your debut after you struggle.
Right, that's the key there because clearly Malik is talented. He's physically gifted. We met him on our camp tour. I mean, I'm looking eye to eye with him, and I'm a former tight end. But to respond that way, 24 of your last 32, no turnovers either. So they completely dominated the turnover battle. But it's the arm talent that jumps off in the ball location. At the college level, the hashes are much wider. So usually if you're on one far hash, a lot of quarterbacks and offenses don't even try to throw to the far side of the field. Malik had a number of big-time explosive throws from far hash to far field. He also hit Webb with great ball location on a back shoulder type play down the field, jumped off the tape to me, and I love his answer in the postgame. You know, obviously an exciting performance, and they were like, hey, Malik, how do you feel about it? And he really downplayed it, as a quarterback should. He said everyone feels good about their first one, but there's certainly things to build upon. And I'm like, that's a mature leader type answer.
I was struck by his maturity when we spoke with him as well at camp. He didn't play the day that we were at camp, and they made a special point of bringing him over and introducing him to us. And really impressive interpersonally, as both of you guys have talked about, and pretty impressive on the field as well. Dylan Raiola was in the same spot last year, a true freshman quarterback who a lot of people had heaped many expectations upon. It was up and down, I thought, last year for him. Now year 2 debut for Raiola. What did you see?
Well, another great test, too. I mean, this was a dogfight. This was a close game. And what I saw from Dylan was the leadership.
Just go back, Jake, to when you started a season, right? You lay in your bed the night before, you envision what the game is going to be like. Now be this young man, Dylan Raiola. You're playing in the Chiefs Stadium. Your idol in Patrick Mahomes is up in the press box alongside Travis Kelce and his now fiance in Taylor Swift. I mean, the hype around this thing was double than what it normally is. And I just loved the way that he settled in. Because I think outside of the Ohio State-Texas game, this was the most competitive matchup in terms of 2 Power 4 teams. You're going to go battle, like what's going to go happen in this game. And they were tested. Cincinnati did not flinch. They were not intimidated by that environment. It felt like it was a pretty pro-Nebraska crowd. And Dylan had to settle in. And to your point of taking the little things is important. I mean, there's a phrase in quarterback play, especially from the air raid tree that Dana Holgorsen is from. And it's, quote, be boring. It's said to every quarterback, don't be a coverage scientist, just be boring. Take what this defense gives you. And I thought he did that. And then when he had to strike, he was able to do so. My favorite play is an RPO, and he has to scramble to his left, kind of contort his body and throw a touchdown inside the 5-yard line. I mean, those are little things where I think he's just really grown as a player around his discernment and decision-making. So I'm really looking forward to watching Nebraska continue to progress in year 2 under Dylan Raiola.
To the point both of you guys are making about taking what the defense gives you, completed his last 11 passes in a really close game. Didn't force anything, didn't turn it over in a bad spot, and it allowed Nebraska to hang on and get that win. Yogi, how about Aiden Childs? It was kind of a tale of 2 halves game for Michigan State. The offense clicked, I thought, in the first half. In the second half, the offense didn't score any points. It's his second year as a starter in that offense. What did you make of that performance?
Well, you watch the first half and you're like, okay.
Here we go.
This is the growth of the position. I mean, let's not make any mistake about it. It's the most challenging position in all of team sports. It's the most scrutinized position in all of team sports. And it's a very individualized position. So how do you navigate that? We saw Aiden Childs go through that last year, whether it was quotes in pregame or whether it was struggles during a game. He'd have all these highs and lows. That first half, I'm saying to myself, this looks like a Jonathan Smith offense. They're running outside zone. This is a revamped offensive line behind Jim Mahalchik, one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. Aiden Childs just looks so much more comfortable as a fully entrenched starter in year 2 in Michigan State. Second half, it wasn't perfect, and I walked away after watching that back saying, good. Like, this is great, because it started so well. It started so efficient for Aiden Childs that I think it's great with here comes Boston College. And I think there were so many moments of, we proved we could do it. We proved we could be consistent for 2 quarters. Now come on back Sunday, Monday, throughout the majority of this week in advance of Bill O'Brien's squad. So I was high on Childs in terms of jump from last year to this year. We saw a lot of those highs. You also saw some challenging moments. I think he'll play his best game for Michigan State this weekend. At least that's what I would expect after watching that one back.
Yeah, they got great pieces around him. I mean, Nick Marsh is obviously a stud. Omari Kelly is a extremely viable option, and Jack Velling is a great tight end. I certainly think they can get him more involved. That'll only help him. And I think the tail of the second halves, there was some shuffling of the offensive line for Michigan State. I don't know how many different combinations they tried in terms of the 5 that they sent out on the field, but it looked like the first 5 looked more comfortable, and Childs felt more comfortable behind them than some of the other combinations. But this is my analogy for Childs. It's like before we had cars, you had to go in the wild and tame a horse. Childs is the white stallion, this beautiful, strong horse that's like, man, this guy has all the gifts in the world, but you have to tame him. You see this on tape consistently, which is the playmaking ability. He's obviously a great athlete, a big, big arm, but it's these small little fundamentals. It's not about adding anything for Childs. It's about removing some of the mistakes. Put 2 balls on the ground, obviously lost 1 fumble in the game. I'm interested. I think part of that is the trust with the offensive line, but it's the little, small fundamentals for Childs that are going to unlock his full potential.
Turnovers were a huge issue last year, the lost fumble, as you said. We morphed from Big Ten today to Yellowstone right there, just in one fell swoop. It was fun to see. Okay, how about DeMond Williams? There was so much excitement about his performance at the end of last year. Washington found itself in a dogfight.
Oh, yeah.
What did you make of Williams' performance?
Well, he's clearly gifted, and we've been talking about this for a while, even since last year. We talked about it through spring ball and through fall camp. He's extremely, extremely gifted. He's a great athlete. We saw that in some of the read option situations. He was able to avoid pressure and make some plays running the football down the field. But every great quarterback needs a go-to guy. I think his chemistry and relationship with Denzel Boston on the outside are scary for the rest of college football. And I think the other complementary piece here, I know we're talking about quarterbacks, but my goodness, Jonah Coleman is the best back in the Big Ten Conference as it stands right now. So it's all these pieces around DeMond Williams that allow him to unlock his full potential. And then the piece of Jed Fish being one of the best play callers in college football. It was an encouraging game for Washington. I thought Colorado State, put up a great fight, and Boston did everything he could to lead his team to victory.
280-plus rushing yards. Think of this offensive line. When Jed Fish got there, they had 7 guys in the spring, his first spring. They had 15 last year, right? They got 18 now. Bottom line, this is such a healthier offense. And now you've got DeMond Williams as the entrenched starter. I love how Jed Fish gave him the game ball because it was his first win as a starting quarterback in his 3 starts in his young, flourishing career. And what I love most about him is how he attacked the line of scrimmage. I think there's something as a quarterback, when you take your drop, you assess read 1, you take a hitch to read 2, and then you attack the line of scrimmage. When he attacked the line of scrimmage, his eyes were still downfield. That's, to me, a big growth area. And then, Jake, your point of the scheme with Jimmy Doherty and Jed Fish, it's so fun to watch because there's always going to be answers to the line of scrimmage. Let me tell you what you don't have an answer for. A dual-threat quarterback that is not just fast, but as Jimmy D told me, Jimmy Doherty said, he's fast. Like he is. You watch him take off a few times against an impressive Colorado State team that I think will win a bunch of games this year. It's going to give D coordinators fits. How do you have an answer for him? You want to spy him? No problem. They'll just throw it behind the ear hole of whoever's doing that, or they'll hand it off to the best back, you could argue, in the country, in Jonah Coleman. So I think UW continues to grow, and if they can protect him and run the football, look out, man. I mean, this thing is coming. I know we got it 4 weeks away, but you know who comes to town. That'll be a fun game when Ohio State shows up on Montlake.
Over 500 yards of offense in that game, the second most of the Fish era, and no doubt the arrow is pointing up on the Huskies. Speaking of the arrow pointing up, I want to go and get a quick thought from each one of you guys on my Saturday standout, Ryan Brown from Purdue. How about that performance?
How about 2 explosive plays in the first 3? I mean, we haven't seen that in a minute, right? And Purdue has always prided themselves on quarterback play. Loved it. I was just so happy for him. And then you watch the team. It was almost like the top came off. We talked about celebration earlier. These guys have worked so hard. You pour in so much. Nobody believes. You got a new coach. And then, boom, he wins the job. Explosive plays down the field. They're up 14-0, quick. And they went from hoping things were probably going to go well to now feeling a different element of confidence they probably felt in a long time at Purdue.
With all the changes, all the new pieces, new head coach, new offensive scheme, this was a quarterback battle. They didn't know who they were going to roll out, even back to media days. That looked like an offense that knew who they are and who they wanted to be, and that's a credit to their quarterback, Ryan Brown, who looked like he knew who he is and what he was capable of. A lot of positive things to build off there for the Boilermakers.
And, man, they made a huge jump from when we were there to this. I mean, just dramatically improved. So give them a lot of credit, got better and better during camp. All you had to do was watch the Illinois game last year to know how good Ryan Brown could be, and he certainly showed it off. Kirk Ferentz on the precipice of history, got win number 205 of his Big Ten coaching career Saturday against Albany. That ties him with Woody Hayes for the most ever Ferentz can break the record Saturday against Iowa State. We'll have to do so in hostile territory in Ames, and this is a tough assignment. Jake, remember, Iowa State beat them last year in Iowa City. The Cyclones are 2-0. They got a great win in Ireland. This is not going to be easy. What are you looking for from Ferentz and company against the Cyclones?
Well, one, when you're going on the road, and it's also true when you're playing in a rivalry game where emotions are going to be high, the best thing you can do is to run the football. And boy, was that a great start for the Hawkeyes, running the football over 300 yards on the ground. I know we were excited about this Hawkeye offensive line, watching them in camp, but Kirk Ferentz told us he's excited about the freshmen. Obviously, Xavier Williams had a big-time game. That's going to be their formula for success. I don't think Gronowski suddenly forgot to throw the football. We know what he's capable of. We've seen that in the past in his career. I think his best football as a Hawkeye is ahead of him, but the run game will be the foundation. And really, that's the weak point of Iowa State's defense. I think the path for Iowa is to dominate in the trenches. Last year, they gave up too many explosive plays in the back end. I would expect there to be an improvement for the Hawkeyes back end here, but running the football and dominating the trenches is the formula.
We'll probably need more than 48 passing yards, but to your point, we saw just how good this offensive line could be. The backs are impressive, so that is the formula. It's been the formula for a long time for Iowa. What about Illinois, Yogi? They're going down to Duke. The Blue Devils won 9 games a season ago. They did extremely well in the portal, particularly at quarterback. What does Illinois have to do to get a win against Duke and get to 2-0?
Well, they're going to have to get after the quarterback, number one. I mean, Duke didn't look great against Elon. Maybe that's because Kurt Cignetti's not there anymore. But overall, I think that you will grab your attention. The quarterback play of Duke and just the defensive style. You guys know, obviously, Manny Diaz, the head coach of Duke, and wherever he goes, their defense plays really well. I think, one, Duke got to find a way to block Gabe Akis. I mean, he was just a game wrecker. He was that way when we saw him in training camp. He had obviously moments last year. I think he's one of the best edge rushers in this league, and he was a man-child. 2.5 sacks, 2 TFLs, vice versa. Like, it was just amazing when you watch that tape back. And then on the other side, I came away watching this game and the offensive line in Illinois, just watching them scheme-wise, watching them move the line of scrimmage. And then Luke Altmaier, I go back to discernment. I mean, he's never been more confident. We talked to him a couple weeks ago in camp, talking to the crew that called their game last weekend. They reference a lot of the mental skill work that he did. They said that a lot in the broadcast as well. Overall, I think that we're looking at a really veteran team. And I think veteran teams, to Jake's point, not only to run the ball, but you go on the road and you can handle the environment. I think they'll go down and do that. I think this is a team that if we were going to tier it out and say, okay, who's got a shot at the playoff that was hyped up that we, after week 1, what do we really believe in? I believe in these guys. Like, I believe in Illinois' run game. I believe in their defense. You watch them make plays down the field. You watch the style in which Barry Lenny Jr. calls a game. I mean, it's an impressive outfit, man. I think it's going to shock people with their physicality. That's what you got to have on the road when you get down in what will be a really meaningful game, because then they get another one, then all of a sudden they're going to Indiana, and away we go.
Yeah, those first 2 big games, those are prove-it games for them this week, and then the Big Ten opener at Indiana a couple weeks from now. We'll know a ton about the Illini 4 games into their season. We're going to wrap things up next on Big Ten Today. Some tales from the road that the guys will take from their trips out west. Stick around. It is time to go around the Big Ten. Congratulations to Michigan State men's soccer coach Damon Rensing, win number 150 of his career yesterday as the Spartans took down Detroit Mercy 1-0. Rensing in his 17th season in East Lansing. He's the second winningest coach in program history. Big Ten Players of the Week came out yesterday. A pair of winners on the offensive side. USC's Jade Mayava. How about 16 yards per attempt in the season opener? Played a half. And Washington's Jonah Coleman, his most rushing yards as a Husky. Congratulations to that duo. Yogi, you witnessed that Mayava performance. Final thoughts from the road for you?
Well, I'll say this. Gratitude is a beautiful trait to have. And when you're sitting at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, overlooking that beautiful field, and you see that sun setting, and it's such a clear night in L.A., that Hollywood sign is just picturesque. You look to my partner, Guy Haberman, and I'm like, man, who's got it better than us, man? I mean, who's got it better than us? Our crew is just really cool to get going. So my tale from the road is just being around, fellowshipping with everybody, watching a beautiful game in a historic setting with an epic sunset.
Yeah, for me, Oregon's wide receiver coach and pass game coordinator is a guy by the name of Ross Douglas. We were early enrollees in the same recruiting class at the University of Michigan together. We were 17 and 18 years old when we moved into the dorm. He is a young and exciting coach. It was great to see him. He has a newborn baby, Ross Jr., and I got to see his parents, Robert and Denise, took him to the truck, took him up into the booth. So seeing old friends, it's the relationships that are really a great treat.
No doubt. Columbus and State College for you two coming up this week. Looking forward to those calls. Looking forward to tomorrow on Big Ten Today as well. Jerry DiNardo will join me for that show. We will see you then. Thanks so much for watching.